What's up, millionaires? Of course, this episode of the First Generation Millionaire Podcast is brought to you by none other than Set TV. We've been going a few episodes now. You should know all the benefits of Set TV, 500 plus channels, on-demand movies, HD streaming straight through the internet. It is crazy. So do yourself a favor. After you're done listening to this podcast, go to www.thefgm.co/set and just run a Set TV trial. No credit card required. Run a trial. Check it out for yourself. And I guarantee you will love it. $20 a month. Access to 3 different devices. That's 1,500 channels on 3 TVs. That's crazy. Set TV, ladies and gentlemen. This is the First Generation Millionaire Podcast, and the show starts right now. I'm more afraid of not knowing. I'm more afraid of not doing it myself and being able to talk about it. I'm more afraid of being afraid in front of my children. I'm more afraid of limiting them. What's up, everyone? What's up, millionaires? What's up, my people? What's up, world? What's up, internets? What's up, social media? What's up to everybody? I hope everyone is having a great day. Hope you're having a great night, morning, evening, whatever time you're listening to this. I hope things are going your way. I hope you're feeling healthy, wealthy, and wise today. In today's episode, I want to talk about something that's very, very important that I think a lot of people may miss out on, right? I think a lot of people may undervalue what I want to talk about today. But it's very, very important. And it came back to me, you know, if you keep your eyes open and you keep your spirit open, you keep your third eye open, right? You keep yourself, I talk about it all the time, you keep yourself in receivership mode. You know, there are lessons to be taught and lessons to be learned all around us, ladies and gentlemen. And sometimes they come back later. Right? Sometimes they come back later. Sometimes you plant a seed, you don't even know you're planting a seed. Or you're planting a seed for a different purpose than what is going to flower, what is going to, you know, take root and what's going to grow and what's going to come back and show you that your efforts were worth it. You know, it's almost like you planted what you thought was a peach tree and you find out it was an orange tree, right? But you end up growing the most delicious oranges in the world. You end up appreciating oranges more. You're not mad. It's like, damn, I thought it was a peach tree, but I'm pleasantly surprised to find out that it was an orange tree. I planted it myself. The bag said it was a peach tree. The seed said they were peach trees. And I got an orange tree, but I'm not mad at that, right? So let me tell you all about this. Let me tell you what happened with me today. I spent a lot of time on my Facebook profile. Probably too much time on my Facebook profile as opposed to my Instagram. I'm still behind the ball on Instagram. So if anyone is listening to this and they want to help me with their services for my Instagram, to get my followers up, to get my interactions up, all of that, you know, I need that help on Instagram. I do quite well on Facebook, but I really need to start taking and devoting and dedicating more time to Instagram. Anyway, so on Facebook, right, they have this section that's called a year ago today or 1 year ago or whatever it's called, right? So basically, or no, it's called on this day because it goes back to that day 1 year ago, 2 years ago, five years ago, 6 years ago, depending on how long you've been on Facebook. Well, I'm looking at that today, right? Because I like to look at it and see my growth. Have I grown? How have I grown? Do I still talk the same? Do I still look the same, right? Do I still have the same energy? Have I learned anything? All of this stuff is what, you know, I look at my on this day for. Well, today, one of the pictures that came up on this day was a picture of my guy, Anthony Solomon, from Philly. Shout out to Philly. A picture of my guy, Anthony Solomon. And I don't remember if it was a year ago or 2 years ago that I posted the picture, but it came up today. Anyway, in MLM, when I was in MLM, I was in this travel MLM, right? And whenever I had someone to join me in the business, I would, make a big deal about it, right? You have to make those commercials, which is a sidebar. You have to make commercials for your business, ladies and gentlemen. People need to know that your business is growing, right? People need to know that your business is growing. People need to know that you're doing what you say you are doing. So you have to create those commercials. You don't want to brag and boast, and you don't want to take all the credit. You don't want it to be about you, but the commercials can be just about your team growing, right? The commercials can be just about your clients growing if you're a consultant. But you want to make those commercials. You have to make those commercials, and you have to celebrate people. So the picture came up with Anthony Solomon. So I'm looking at the picture, and the background now of the picture looks very uh, familiar to me. It looks very familiar to me. And I'm like, wait a second. I know that background. I know that city. I know that body of water. Why did I recognize it last year when I first posted a picture? I went on his page, to find a picture. I always go on people's pages and see what picture will best represent. And some people, it's really hard to find a picture. So that picture of Anthony Solomon was cool. I thought it was cool. It looked like he was having a good time, enjoying himself. I know he travels a lot. But back to the picture. The picture was familiar to me. And I knew what city that he was in, that I didn't know when I posted that a year or 2 years ago, however long ago it was. So I took the picture and I reposted it on my Facebook page this morning, and I tagged him in it. And I said, Anthony Solomon. I'm stop calling him by his full name. I was like, yo, Anthony, is this Lisbon in this picture? And Lisbon is in Portugal, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Lisbon is in Portugal. So it's like, hey, is that Lisbon? And he responded back, yes, sir. I took it at one of the forts. And I was mind blown, one, because I recognized the city. Two, because we took a picture in almost the exact location, ladies and gentlemen. We took a picture in almost the exact location. And the reason why I didn't recognize the city when I posted the picture a year or 2 years ago is because I had not been to the city yet. I had not seen the city. I had not taken in the sights. Honestly, I had not even thought about going to that city. I didn't even know the city existed, right? To be completely transparent with you, I never even knew the city existed. But what happened was my family and I, we took our second trip to Europe, Thanksgiving of 2017. We took our second trip to Europe. And the first city that we stopped in, the first city that we saw, the first city that we got our tourism in was Lisbon, Portugal. It was Lisbon, Portugal. And amongst all the sites that we saw in the city, it was this one spot. I think Anthony was probably at the castle, and we were up from the castle. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, I recognized the picture because I had been exposed to the city. I recognized the picture. I recognized the city because I had been to that city. Between the time of me posting it, originally posting it, and coming back and seeing it later, I had been exposed to that city, to the sites. I had familiarized myself with Lisbon, Portugal. I had familiarized myself with the breathtaking view. So it was easy for me to come back and recognize the city later on. What's the moral of the story, Antonio? In order to be wealthy, ladies and gentlemen, in order to be wealthy, in order to spread wealth, you have to expose yourself to different things. Wealthy people are good at exposure. Wealthy people are good at seeing things with their own two eyes, experiencing things themselves. Wealthy people are great at exposing themselves to wealthy things. And wealthy things, I'm not talking about freaking cars and clothes and jewelry. I'm talking about situations. I'm talking about environments. I'm talking about exposing yourself to certain people. See, a lot of people are not where they want to be. A lot of people are not successful. A lot of people don't even know how to recognize success. Tons of people don't know how to recognize opportunity because they haven't exposed themselves to opportunities. They haven't exposed themselves to wealth. They haven't exposed themselves to anything that's different because they're afraid. I told people that we were going to Europe and we were going to all these different countries on this trip. And the first thing that most people said, well, aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid to be traveling over there? There's so much terrorism going on and people don't like certain people in certain countries. Aren't you afraid? I was like, I'm more afraid of not exposing myself. I'm more afraid of not knowing. I'm more afraid of not doing it myself and being able to talk about it. I'm more afraid of being afraid in front of my children. I'm more afraid of limiting them than I am of some country that I don't know anything about, that I only hear stuff on the news that's filtered and it's framed a certain way, right? The news is framed a certain way to kind of spark a certain reaction. They lead with fear. But the wealthy people, and again, I'm not talking about wealthy and with money. I'm talking about wealth and experience. I'm talking about the people that are able to give away so much information. It's because they're exposed. They've exposed themselves to different things, to different places, people, and things, ladies and gentlemen. You have to expose yourself. I live in Atlanta. I'm from a small town in South Georgia. I remember growing up as a kid, I used to sit outside and just look, and it's like, man, I'm in the country. There's really nothing here. And I used to think about the kids in Atlanta, and I would think how much they had access to, how much access they had to different things, how much exposure they had to different things. Anytime something major would happen in the state of Georgia, it came through Atlanta. Six Flags was in Atlanta. All these buildings and, different events, they were all in Atlanta. So they had access to exposure. And then when I moved to Atlanta, I found out that, man, a lot of these kids in Atlanta have never left their zip code. They've never left their zip code. They never left their inner circle. Their inner circle is a spawn of their parents' inner circle. It's the same people in the circle. So when they get in situations and they meet someone that's not from that circle, the communication is strained, right? There's intimidation in the air. There's a lot of timidness in the air because they don't know how to communicate with certain people. And it's because of the exposure. People communicate well because they've been exposed well, ladies and gentlemen. They've been exposed well. There's no greater exposure than going to a country that doesn't speak your language and you don't speak their language, and you have to put in some effort. You have to put in effort to learn how to communicate with these people beyond language, beyond words. And then you start to learn the words. You start to learn the words, ladies and gentlemen. You have to expose yourself. You have to expose your kids. If you want to be wealthy, truly wealthy, it comes with exposure. Look back on this day on your Facebook. Look through at all of those posts on this day. See if there's anything that was posted there that wasn't familiar to you then that you're familiar with now. What do you see around you now that you didn't see last year? If you're seeing the exact same thing now that you saw last year and the year before that and the decade before that and the decade before that, you're playing yourself and you're limiting yourself. Your growth is really in direct relation to your exposure. Exposure to education. Exposure to failure. How about that? Exposure to failure. A lot of us don't want to expose ourselves to certain things or certain opportunities because we are afraid to fail. But guess what? You learn 10 times more when you fail at something, and there's only one way to fail. That's if you quit. So failure, that's a fallacy, really. The only way to fail is if you quit. If you attempt something and you fall down and you bruise yourself, you break yourself, you hurt yourself, you lose some people, you lose some of your confidence, you can gain all of that back, and you're going to come back stronger because you tried it. But you're going to learn from it. And when you learn something, it's almost impossible to unlearn something, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost impossible to unlearn something. So expose yourself to as much as you can, as early as you can, as often as you can, ladies and gentlemen. Because there's no greater feeling than to come back and see something from the past and recognize it. There's no greater feeling than to see something from your past that you struggle with or that you weren't familiar with, that you know in and out now. That you know in and out now. Like, man, I didn't know anything about, cryptocurrency, for example, a year ago. Now I'm a freaking genius with cryptocurrency. So when I look back at my old posts and I'm talking about, traditional savings and, conservative savings or whatever it is that you're doing with your portfolio. And now you look back like, damn, if I had known about cryptocurrency back then, where would I be now? But guess what? I know about it now. So when people talk about it, I've been exposed to it so I can feel it. I can partake in the conversation. I can move the conversation. Shoot, I can control a conversation about cryptocurrency now. And I knew nothing about it last year, but I allowed myself to expose myself. Exposure, ladies and gentlemen, is in direct relation to your growth, in direct relation to your wealth, in direct relation to the trajectory of your family's lineage. Expose yourself, expose your kids. Summertime is coming up. Get those kids out of the city. Get those kids out of your state. Get those kids out of your country if you can. And take them somewhere that scares you. I'm not telling you to take them somewhere where there's some type of civil uprising or anything like that. It's going to be dangerous. But somewhere that scares you, that you don't speak the language. You don't know what the food tastes like. Exposure, ladies and gentlemen. This is Antonio Starr. This is the First Generation Millionaire Podcast. Just like every week, I want to thank you. Thank you all for checking in. Thank you all for subscribing. Thank you all for leaving comments on this podcast. And I really, really want to thank you for sharing it, because I feel like we have something valuable to say. I know that we have something valuable to say to the people, and we need your help getting this voice out. Speaking of the voice and getting the voice out, this is what I need you to do for me, millionaire, before we leave. Be sure to check us on IG. I told you I need my help with IG. Antonio Starr with 2 R's on IG, at Antonio Starr. Also at the FGM. And don't forget about Facebook. Antonio Starr with 2 R's. Find me. Connect with me. Let's connect, ladies and gentlemen. FirstGenerationMillionaire.com if you want to grab one of those shirts as well. Thank you so much. Let's go be millionaires, baby. Peace.